Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I am Gino Buccola alongside Mailloux with producer Bobby helping us out as we head over to Santa Anita for opening day at Santa Anita. We're going to preview race number 9, which is the Grade 3 San Gabriel. This is right in the middle of an all-graded stakes pick 4 that closes out the card on a fantastic opening day card at Santa Anita. This race, Ashley, it was a fun race to handicap, but for sort of different reasons. This field in 2025 has raced 56 total times this year, 5 wins out of those 56 combined. Only one grade 3 win in the entire field this year, which was Cabo Spirit back in April. Only one other stakes win, and no horse in this race has won more than one time this year. It's a really competitive, evenly matched group, but there's not really any monsters or nobody who scares the heck out of you in here.
No, and it's a nice way for a lot of these horses to try to get a victory or add to their resume at the end of the season. I think a lot of them, you can kind of go through. They've been in grade 2 waters, or maybe they've dabbled in the grade 1s. It hasn't panned out. So for some, it's class relief, but I think it gets tough when you have so many of them that this might be a quote-unquote softer spot and they haven't been able to shine elsewhere.
Let's see what Timeform US thinks about this race as far as the pace projector is concerned. So they've got Astronomer up on the lead. He's not really a horse who's on the lead. He can sit close. I wouldn't be shocked if it's more of Cabo Spirit or Nesso's Last Hurrah. Though they seem more like the types of horses, Ashley, who want to go forward. Cabo Spirit is usually on the lead. Nesso's Last Hurrah, he's had a couple disappointing recent efforts where he just kind of missed the break and wasn't as involved early on. But I thought both the Cabo Spirit and Nesso's Last Hurrah are capable of pretty big early fractions if they want to go.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would think Cabo Spirit ends up making the lead when it's all said and done. Just kind of looking at his body of work in the last, 2 years, that's typically what you see from him. If he's not making the lead, he's rating in second. But this group, there's a lot of horses that, they haven't been close to the pace, and some of them exit slow races.
Let's meet the field for the Grade 3 San Gabriel. $100,000 up for grabs. This one's going to go as race number 9 on Sunday at Santa Anita. We start out with the number 1, Twirling Point, who I think is one of those horses who you might kind of look at first glance and then kind of pass over. I stayed a little bit on Twirling Point. I was looking at the races last year where he was not too far behind Stay Hot. And then you look at this year, he's raced 3 times. One of them was off the bench behind Nesso's Last Hurrah, where he had legitimate traffic. One of them was at Colonial, where I think the 1.5 miles is just a little too far for him. And then he had legitimate trouble again last time out. He has improved since last year. I just don't think he's been able to run his best race this year so far, because 2 of the races he's had legitimate trouble. One of them was probably beyond where he's at his best. So in a race that's kind of wide open where nobody scares me, I think this horse is kind of sneakily moving in the right direction, Ashley. DeMuro had a very nice Del Mar meet. Yeah, she's got to have to step forward on speed figures, but I'm just not really scared of the rest of the field in here. I think she's kind of in an interesting spot moving forward. She's 20-1 on the morning line. What are some of your thoughts on Twirling Point?
Well, I think you bring up a point about those last 2 and kind of the trips and even the trip 3 back. But a lot, I think, has to do with the distance, going 1.5 miles and going 1 3/8 now cuts back to 1 1/8. I think that probably boosts him a little bit. You talked about sort of the foes that he carried last year as a 3-year-old, some really nice horses. So I've seen 20-1 shots that I like a whole lot less than him. I just think, what sort of trip is he going to get? I would like to see him mid-pack here. That would be sort of my goal with him. I don't want to see him too far off of it. And I think kind of looking at the pace or lack thereof in his last 2, he's going to get more of an honest pace here just on the cutback alone.
I mean, you go to Mondigo, he's grade 1 placed, but the lack of early speed kind of hurts him. You look at his last 3 races, for example, Hollywood Turf Cup, kind of wide, doesn't really show a whole lot. But in the John Henry and the Del Mar, the 4th and the 5th there, those would actually stack up pretty well in this group. So which one of these guys are we going to get? Ashley, the one who ran really well in back-to-back races, or the one who was kind of disappointing last time out?
Yeah, I can't read this horse. I don't know kind of what the cutback to expect. I have concerns that he's still going to be pretty far off of it and trying to roll. And you look at the win this year, his only win in the last 2 years, it was going 1 3/8. And I don't know. I just kind of look at the trip. I mean, he beat some okay horses, Dicey Mochara and British Isles, who we talked about earlier in a different preview, but they were crawling. I mean, 116 and 3. And he still goes by them. So I I find horses like him, especially at 8-1, I'd want a better price on him, so I have to
Yeah.
pass.
Me too. I couldn't get a feel for him. We moved to Endlessly. The blinkers come off. He's a multiple graded stakes winner, but he's now 0 for his last 6. He has not won since the Jeff Ruby Stakes, which was 21 months ago. And he only had 2 works total in December. And it looks like he was missing a couple works in November. Like, I just don't know how well he's coming into this race. I know he was entered in another spot. I think at Del Mar last month, he was scratched out of there. I need to see him string a couple good races together on the track right now.
I think the exciting part for him, he is the stablemate to the 2 that we just talked about, Mondigo, is getting back on the turf course at Santa Anita. The turf course has been sort of kind to him. Del Mar has not really worked out. I could come up with maybe an excuse or 2. Last time out, they tried something new. He was more forward, going further in terms of distance, 1 mile and 3/8. I like him cutting back. Again, though, I'd want a little bit better of a price on him in this group, but I'm not convinced that, we've seen his best yet. I think he can take a step forward.
Stay hot, be one of the top contenders in here. He's a grade 3 winner, multiple graded stakes placed. His most recent effort, though, was kind of disappointing. He was last of 8, about 6 or 7 lengths off. He angled out widest of all, just a non-threatening 6th of 8. He passed 2 tiring horses there late. But he only may have like 2-3 races in his entire career that were like worse off than that one. That was one of his most poor performances of all. What do we do with him? What concerns me, Ashley, his recent lack of early speed in his last few races. There was a couple of times where it didn't look like there was that much speed on paper, and he was still way farther back. I'm a little concerned at him going these shorter distances now, that he's just going to be way behind early on.
Yeah, we'll see. You mentioned it. He hasn't showed the same speed that he's shown from time to time as you go through his past performances. You see a different rider, though. Red Ortiz Jr. booked to ride him for the first time. Another one that's getting back to Santa Anita, which has been a little bit kinder to him. Not that he hasn't been strong at Del Mar. We saw that with a 3rd in the Eddie Reed and then a 2nd in the Del Mar handicap. I would give him a pass. He's not a horse that he runs a poor race and then he runs another one. When you look at his turf races specifically, he's had 3 poor showings. Can probably come up at least with one excuse, one of them being a Breeders' Cup race. But it's not like he's a horse that consistently strings together bad races and that you're sort of going, what's happened? Has he lost a step? I would still give him another look in here and think that he has the ability to take a huge step forward.
He's one of the more accomplished in this field, right? Like, you kind of start going through the field, and he's a tough horse to leave out of pick 4s or pick 5s or those kinds of multis if you're playing exotics like that. We moved to St. Anthony, 0 for the last 9. He was in a very soft renewal of the Lure last time out. He was a well-beaten 2nd behind Sumter there, and that's a stakes race for horses who haven't won graded stakes races on the year. He's been recently behind Astronomer and Endlessly, so we're going to need to see him turn the tables on them, but he does get the services of Juan Hernandez, which you always have to take as a positive.
Yeah, certainly a positive. And, while I like that, at 5-1, I don't think I want anything to do with him. Now he's got to stretch out. He's been going, the 8 furlongs. Now he's got to go 9. Could it help him? Maybe. But I just don't feel like this year as a 6-year-old that there's a lot to like. And I go back to as a 5-year-old, there are at least a couple of races, we didn't see him a lot. I can make an excuse, or there was a performance that I loved at Monmouth, but I can't use him at such a short price.
We moved to Nesso's last Harrah. He was in really great form heading into the grade 2 Eddie D. And then in the Eddie D, he was inside. He was 4th. He was about 2 or 3 lengths off. Little bit of traffic. Kind of like a merry-go-round race, though. He just sort of ran around in a circle. Didn't see a whole lot from him that day. Kind of no excuses. Then he's in the Lure, and he just completely misses the break. He's back to last. He's 10 lengths off. He never gets involved. I don't know what to do with him in here. I'm expecting them to try to get him close to the lead, because that's what was working really well for him earlier when he was more forwardly placed. But it's kind of tough when you have a horse who's coming in off of a few really disappointing performances.
No, and he's been a sprinter that's stretched out, that's sprinted, that has stretched out, and then he sort of flip-flopped in the last 4. And my concern with him is, can he go 9 furlongs if he's pressured? I think he's going to take some pressure in here. I think Cabo Spirit, as we talked about, could be involved. I don't know, when it comes to 9 furlongs, if he's going to be able to hold on there. And you look at his wins going longer, the opening quarters have sometimes been fast, but 47-1. Now you got to add that additional furlong. I don't see it happening.
We move to Suchet, who has raced in the U.S. 4 times. And back on July the 26th, he debuted at Del Mar. He was a very good second. It was one of those races where you're going to keep an eye on that horse following that because you were impressed by it. And they stepped him up into the Grade 2 Del Mar mile. He had some trouble at the start in his following race in October. He again had some trouble, was kind of crowded. He's a little bit wide. It just wasn't the best of trips. He came back on in November. And that was an awesome, awesome effort last time out. He was inside. He was about 5 or 6 lengths off. He was in between horses. He was traveling well, looking for room. I mean, he moved up into contention. And I think Larry Colmus was like, whoa, look at Suchet. He just inhaled this field without being asked. You could see they haven't even asked him at this point of the replay yet, Ashley, when he's looming right up to the lead. So whatever it was that they figured out last time, maybe it was just a little bit softer company overall. He exploded and put it all together. So can he continue to progress now off of that effort in a race like this? He's kind of a fun new face where we're kind of poking holes in a lot of these others. And if he is 6 or 8 to 1, that's probably a fair price in here.
Yeah, and I like that the connections, John Sadler and the owners decided to regroup. And after the Del Mar mile, let's go soft again and see if we can kind of get a win under his belt and then step it up from there. And I think that really puts him in a good spot, like him stretching out once again. You wonder if the distance had a little bit to do with it. I thought he did have some trouble 2 starts back at Santa Anita, so excited to see him back over this turf course. And I think it's promising that Rosario's, set to ride once again. He could have been a little bit of a difference maker last out.
Major player in here. We move to Astronomer, who is now 0 for his last 15. No wins since August of 2023. But he's one of the more consistent horses in this whole field, race to race to race. And he comes off of a really good runner-up effort last time out. He was sitting third. He was only about 2 lengths off. He was inside. He was traveling really well. He tried to move into a tight spot, and that spot got shut off. He had to kind of alter course a few times, and he finished a really solid second in there. So I think he's kind of like a measuring stick for this race. It actually seems like the type of race where it wouldn't shock me for a horse who's 0 for his last 15 to win, but I think he's going to be there in the mix late if somebody doesn't jump up and run a better or kind of run an improved race.
Yeah, and as we take a look at that last out effort you're talking about in the Grade 2 Seabiscuit handicap, I liked the trip that he got from Freyzu just to kind of be close to it. You don't have to be on the lead, and he's typically not, at least at this point in his career. Early on, he was a little bit more forward and just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting. I still think he's second best in here, but ends up being a pretty good effort from him when it's all said and done. He's a horse that I think consistently fires big numbers. It's kind of sad when you look at it, the fact that he's always trying, Gino, as you mentioned, though. He's not winning races. I think you have to consider a horse like him in the exotics. But how short of a price do you take in terms of the win honors? He's 9 to 2 on the morning line. I think that's a very fair price.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't want to start getting into like the 7 to 2 and below. When you're right there, that's about fair in the 4 to 5-ish to 1 range. We move to Cabo Spirit. He's one of the most accomplished horses in this field. In fact, he's the most accomplished. He's a multiple graded stakes winner. He's earned $1.2 million. He's a pace factor. He can sit off a little bit, but he does his best running on the lead. From March to September of this year, he had 6 straight awesome efforts. Like, that's the career best form he had ever been in. He was off for a couple months. He showed back up in the Seabiscuit. He was battling for the lead. He was in the 2-path outside, and he just packed it in. So what's tough is he goes from his best string of races ever, where even when he wasn't winning, he was fighting hard. He was right there. And then he has a race where he just packs it in and backs all the way up and finishes last, which was not at all how he had been over the last few months. So I go back and forth with him, Ashley, because I don't love playing horses off of disappointing efforts like that. Sometimes you get better value when you do. On paper in here, he does look like he's either the one to catch or one of the horses that will be forward, and he has a great resume. So I think he's in the mix here. I probably don't have him on the win end, but I respect the heck out of him.
Yeah, and I think you have to, in this spot, think about if he makes the lead easy, what can he do? I think probably he could get a piece, and we even saw that in his kind of little bit of a freshening when he returned to Del Mar back on July 27th, where, sure, he didn't win it, but he went 49 to the half, which suggests here, if he can get out there and set soft fractions, some of these other horses that need the pace to develop, they could be in trouble. But He's always been a little bit of a tough horse for me to use on top. I think
Me too.
his best chance of winning is going to the front and walking the dog, and we'll see if that happens.
And then we move to Flashiest, who is another just not winning a lot recently, but in pretty good form. He has back-to-back runner-up efforts. He is 0 for the last 9, though. The most recent second-place finish came in the Hollywood Turf Cup, where he actually ran better than it looks on paper because he actually had some traffic in there too before angling out and coming and closing and finishing a very nice second. But he was 40-1 that day, so a big price horse. And another who's just not a consistent winner. What do we do with him at a big price?
Well, take a look at that replay. You talked about him being a big price last out. I know it's not fast, but when you look at races, say 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles, we see a lot of 50s to the half. They went 48-4. It's not fast, but it's a little bit quicker than sometimes we see, Gino. And I think that set him up for this big effort. A horse that I personally think at this trip going 9 furlongs needs a ton of pace help. And I really think it depends. Does the 6 go with Cabo Spirit? Does Astronomer push the envelope? Do a couple others? Does Stay Hot more in the mix than we have seen in recent times? I don't know if this sets up for Flashiest. That's my concern. If there was a ton of pace signed on, even on the cutback, depending who those horses were, he could maybe get a piece. But I do find it a little difficult to get to him in the end.
We round things out with 911 Turbo, who is multiple graded stakes place. But if I sound like a broken record, he's 0 for his last 12. So just a lot of these that haven't been winning recently. He did run a nice third in the Grade 2 Hollywood Turf Cup. He was actually right behind Flashiest, and we just saw that replay a moment ago. 911 Turbo does have a couple wins over this turf course at Santa Anita, where he has run well. Finished 8th in this race last year, but that was behind Johannes. So definitely a classy field that he was facing last year. What do we do with this guy rounding things out?
To me, it feels like a little bit of a similar story to the 10 Flashiest. I think they need some pace help. They exit that same race. I thought he got a little trip compromised in the end last time out. Like that Hector Barrios has the mount here for Neil Drysdale. I don't know. I mean, you kind of go down his page. He has faced some nice horses, and he's been pretty close to them over the last couple of years, whether that's, Gold Phoenix or Integration, Johannes, Almendares. He has done well. So I don't want to necessarily count him out. I think out of these horses that are more on the, say, double-digit end of things, he's probably the most intriguing. And I would use him for a sliver in here. And the only reason I kind of prefer him over the 10 is I'm more convinced, even at the shorter trip, based on his resume, Gino, that he could get a piece.
There's no two same races, right? That's why we love this sport of horse racing, because some of the races will handicap, and it seems like every single horse is in great form, and they all have a legitimate chance. And then we have a race like this where it's so competitive, but we have a lot of horses who haven't been winning. The key is competitive in this big field. Where are you going to land, Ashley? Who are you looking at towards the top?
I got to stay hot. I think you either love this horse or you don't trust him in here. I have a feeling that last out was just sort of something went wrong, something went amiss. I haven't seen him, as I mentioned earlier, take back-to-back races that have been poor. So I think he's going to regroup here in a big way. Brad Ortiz Jr. climbs aboard for the first time. I think that's a big sign as well. So we'll see if we get 4-1.
Stay hot for Ashley for 11-7-8. For me, I'm going to take a big swing in a race that I don't think there's any real monsters in here. Nobody scares the heck out of me. So I'm not quite as worried about a horse who has a little lighter speed figures. I'm going to go to the 1 Twirling, 0.1798. For me, for Ashley, for 11-7-8. Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy holidays. We wish you the best of luck coming up this weekend at Santa Anita, Gulfstream Park, wherever you're playing the races. David and Mike, David Aragona, Mike Beer have previews of some of the other graded stakes races on opening day at Santa Anita if you want some help there. So, Ashley, we're recording this before Christmas. I hope you have a very nice holiday with your family. I'm always feeling very lucky to be doing these videos with you. So have a great one, and I'll see you soon.
Right back at you, and good luck to everyone playing the next couple of days. Hopefully we can pad our wallets. A nice gift from Santa.
We got to say Merry Christmas to producer Bobby, who's going to be excited to go back and watch Christmas Vacation. Have a good one, Bobby.